Williams, Upstairs to the Right Music Channel, Sunday at Mike's, 11 p.m. Central European Time. It has come. We are here. Thank you so much for tuning in. Always want to start out by saying it's always a great pleasure to have so many people take the time to spend their time with me, tuning into this live stream every time we do it. I mean, every time. I'm always really surprised how many people show up. So thank you guys in advance. Thank you for spending your time with me. I always want to start out by saying that. I always will. Scott, I hope you're doing fine, sir. I saw you in the chat there. Let's refresh things here because I can't see anything. Let's see. Mr. Watson, how you doing, sir? Welcome. How you doing, man? Good to have you here. Um, Happy New Year to you. I hope that you guys are doing well out there as we wait for more people to sign in here with the chat. I shall talk about things that have been going on here. Dump snow is relative. I know, depending upon where you're at in this world, plus or minus. But I have to tell you that for Amsterdam, it snowed pretty decent for the last few days, and they're expecting it even for another couple of days here. So it's uh it's something when it snows here. This place actually gets really pretty beautiful, especially the parks. We got 60 centimeters coming tonight. Yeah, man, over in Nova Scotia, I could well imagine. That's why I said I know amount of snow is relative. Again, I started out by saying that, preface that with you in mind. Um, but yeah, dig it, man. It's for here, it's a lot. Yeah, and but it was nice today. Got to get back into it tomorrow. The Christmas and New Year's holidays are over, but I had a good rest. Um, when you're running businesses, in my case, it's a lot of stress, and to be able to take a week or two, or how did that work out to be? Yeah, roughly about 10 days. Be able to take 10 days and just kind of spend time with my family, hang out with you guys, and just kind of turn off a little bit. It's been very helpful, and I'm ready to get back into a refresh for the 2026 new year. Hope you guys are as well. Um, what else is going on? Yeah, just digging the snow here, like I was starting out by saying. Although I have to say, I'm used to snow. I used to ski since I could walk. But and then in Japan, and then the only place that I didn't experience snow was when I lived, of course, in the equator in Singapore. That was, that was a different thing. But today, to see the snow here in Amsterdam, it really is great because we haven't been getting it. As a matter of fact, I'll go so far as say in the last 5 years that I've lived here, this is probably the most consecutive snow that we've had. So it's really weird. Hi, I'm Khosra. I'm from Iran. Welcome. There are a lot of warnings on Twitter or X against the Iranian leader who has been given 72 hours to survive. This is said by Israel War Room, and I hope it's true. Well, we're dealing in a time of great conflicts. It's not going to get better, guys. I hate to tell you. The way I read it, it gets worse. But we're going into New Year. I wish peace for everybody. I hope there's a peaceful solution to all things. I always hope for that first. There's never, ever, peace is not a final option, it should be the first. Thanks for being here for all of us holidays. Oh, yeah, man. It was great. If I had gone to the cabin, I would have tried to do a live stream as well, but the Wi-Fi out there is dicey at best. Not to say it's much better here in Amsterdam. We haven't had snow since before Christmas. Yeah, there's a lot of things going on out there. As far as the solar system concerned, the sun has had a major coronal eruption. Previous eruptions have and polar shifts have eroded our protection. Uh, what is it? What do they call it? The radiation shield around the Earth is a little weak. So that's changing the weather patterns. Of course, it has effect on weather. So places that generally don't get a lot of snow, like here, I think are going to be. It's going to be one of many. I think it's going to be one of those kind of winters. And for places that should have it, it's dry. California, though, right now, I just spoke to my parents. Apparently, their weather is getting wetter, but still relatively dry. It's just we're in for some wild stuff, not just geopolitically, but weather-wise as well. Um, you know, I was watching Rick Beato um, the other day as I was just cruising YouTube, and I don't watch his interviews too much. I liked Rick Beato back in the days when he would just sit around with his crew, his guys, and they would talk about subjects. Um, Red Shaw recently admitted that when they sat down years ago and discussed whether or not the vintage market would survive the baby boomers dying, he thought yes, but he's actually now starting to say he's changed his mind and saying no, which I found to be pretty interesting because I've been in the no camp myself for a while. That no, it won't survive. Mr. Larson in the house, how you doing? Good. A happy New Year's to you. Happy New Year's to all you guys if I haven't said so yet. Um, I found that fascinating because that's the direction I see the vintage market going as well. You can see it in all vintage markets, the vintage watch market, the vintage car market. It's there, and the guys that desire those things are getting fewer and fewer. It's just the way of cycles. But when I was watching Rick Beato, I found it very interesting this recent video that he put out regarding the nominees for the 2025 Grammys, 2026 Grammys, however it works out. And he took the time to go through playing each one of the nine nominees for Best Song of the Year. He started out by going back to 84 and showing the four nominees. So that's a big difference for Song of the Year. And it was All Night Long by Lionel Richie, Billie Jean by Michael Jackson, She's a Maniac by Michael Cimbello, and I forget the other gentleman who wrote it. And the other one was Every Breath You Take by Sting. And a couple of things that he went through. He went through the fact that, well, Sting won that year. Every Breath You Take won that year. A surprise! I always thought that Beat It was the winner that year, but that was tough. And he was pointing out several things. That was tough competition there, but that was one of the things that he was pointing out is that these are songs that were written 40 years ago plus, and people are still to this day listening to those tracks. And the first thing he said about these nine new nominee songs, and after listening to them, because I've never heard any of them, to be frank, because I don't listen to it, as you guys know. I hadn't heard any of them, so it was fresh take, fresh ears. As he went through them, I agree with his takes on each and every one of those songs. And these songs will not be remembered a month from now. A month from now, you know. And that got me thinking about songwriting. That got me thinking about songwriting. And it's been a while since I've had a discussion about songwriting and my thoughts on modern songwriting. Certainly. Let me catch up here in the chat. Mike, did you hear that Bonamassa sold that Lazarus Les Paul? Did he? That doesn't well, that again, I wonder if he sold it to get something else because Joe is famous for doing that. Um, or if it was just an outright he just felt the need to sell it. As I've said before, you're going to see these rock and roll guys of his generation on up who are selling their collections. It's because they see the writing on the wall. They have business advisors, they have guys who look at the market, who tell them, "Hey, you've got this big chunk of money invested in these instruments. This may be your moment to move this." And so, yeah, that doesn't surprise me. Could you please let me know? Sorry, guys, I'm gonna have to put on my glasses because my eyes are shot. I don't have my contact lenses. Could you please let me know what text and logo are displayed on your screen? So this is my logo for my YouTube channel upstairs to the right. This is my logo for not just my YouTube channel, but also for my record label as well. I've had this for 2 decades now as my logo. Yeah. Hold on. Ben says, "What year was the Purple Rain album?" Purple Rain was 1984. Cheers. Or was it 84? No. So 83, 83. I have to say, but because the next year Prince was nominated for Purple Rain and he won. So yeah, that would make sense. The 85 Grammys he won for Purple Rain. So 84, I would say it came out. I miss good ballad duets like I don't know much, but I know I love you. I hear you, man. That's a beautiful song, isn't it? It's so beautifully sung. Linda Ronstadt really is at her best in that. Looks like your devil's tail waving behind you, Michael. Yeah, you know me, I'm into the esoteric, so there was some thought put into this logo, but it's not what you guys think, but there is a little bit of that. No, you're right. I looked it up. It says 84. Yeah, 84. Yeah. Um, by the way, Anton, welcome. How you doing? So, welcome to the chat. So yeah, he made those points, and the other point that he made out that really blew my mind, always blows my mind, and I touched upon this in the last live stream, was the amount of writers on these modern songs. On the case of those 1984 nominees, if with the exception of "She's a Maniac," all the other three nominees were written by Lionel Richie, soul writer, Michael Jackson, soul writer, and Sting, soul writer. Now we all know with every breath you take there's some controversy going on because Andy Summers is suing Sting, saying that, hey, I came up with that guitar lick. That guitar lick is the heart of the song, so you owe me for that. But so we'll put an asterisk next to that songwriter in that case. But the modern songs had 5, 6, 7, even 11, up to 12 writers, 11 or 12 writers, you know. That's a committee. That's a committee. And it got me really thinking to myself, I think that's the biggest problem with modern music is that when you write songs with committee, you're not really saying what you, the artist, wants to say. You're saying what the committee wants you to say. And when you start thinking about what the committee wants you to say instead of what you want to say, you have completely lost it. You've lost it. You've lost the narrative. And I really want to talk about that tonight. Anton says, I came across your channel by chance and watched several of your videos. I really enjoyed them. Thank you, man. Thank you so much. That means a lot to me hearing that. And I have subscribed. Thank you. God bless. And thank you for joining the group here. We have a fantastic, small, but fantastic group of people here. Real honest talk, real live talk. No agendas to fulfill. Just the facts of the matter. And the fact of it is that I want to expand upon what Rick Beato was saying, and one of his key points I really want to highlight is about the number of songwriters that are involved in these modern productions. Now, I will give credit where credit is always due. You know, may not be my cup of tea, but Taylor Swift writes her own songs. She doesn't write them generally in committee. She writes them herself. She has enough skills as a musician to work it out, at least enough to get it to other musicians so that it can fill the canvas out. But is the sole songwriter in a lot of those cases, and you have to admire that because that is becoming the rarity these days. And I think that is one of the reasons why it doesn't resonate with me. I'm not the demographic that her songs are aimed towards. But I think that one of the reasons that she's at the top is because of that authenticness. Everybody knows that, when she's bitching about somebody, she's talking about something that's going on. Generally these days, since she's dating that football player quarterback, she's, the songs have been happy. But 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 she really wears her heart on her sleeve when it comes to her songwriting. And that is one of the things why I think that she deserves to be where she's at, because that is obviously, it's looking like, it seems to be quite a skill these days. Whereas back in the day, that was really one of the main requirements for you to get in the front door, was you had to be able to write your own tracks as a band or as a solo artist. So Soundgarden is now in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. My favorite band, but not so keen on the establishment. Yeah, Maddie. Hey, Maddie, how you doing, brother? Welcome. Happy New Year to you. Yeah, they made it. They're in. Don't don't we talked about that establishment. We know what that's about. And even the artists themselves get treated shitty when they go through those doors. It's just that if they're treating the people who are getting honored on the night they're getting honored, the way the stories that I share with you and that some of and that we've all read, then what is that all about? So being in there, they're amongst their peers, but they always were. It's just they always were, and we know that, in our hearts. So it doesn't really matter. Scott says songwriting used to be creative, emotionally powerful, and iconic. Now it's sad. Even now and then, I hear some good stuff, but not really much. Yeah, and why is that? What's up with that? If you write songs today, you're not really short on ideas. There never really has been a time in history where there has been a lack of ideas for songs. Believe me, whether it's 1526 or 2026. But I think the difference between 1526 and 2026 is we are drowning in ideas. There's not a shortage of it. It's as a matter of fact, it's a overstimulus of it. Every chord progression, it seems, according to the courts and all the lawsuits that are coming out, has been done. And and the thing that really sparked my creative juices to write this script tonight, after seeing that video, and I immediately flew to my keyboard because I looked at that video. It's only 9 minutes. You guys should watch it. Rick Beato talking about the latest Grammy nominees. If somebody could pull that and put that up, I'd appreciate it. So we could share that with everybody. You need to take a look at that because it is illuminating, to say the least. Is that every melody reminds you of something else. One of the songs, and I think one of the very first ones that he shows in that video, has the is a sample of a song from the 60s. This song has been done 3 times, 4 if you count the original, and somehow or another, this this loop sample with somebody mumbling on top of it comes across as something that is worthy of Song of the Year. You put that song up against an original piece of work like Billie Jean, which not which, by the way, wasn't one of the songs that won. You know, it's insane. And that blew my mind. I couldn't believe it. I was like, they have got to be kidding me. This couldn't be real. This couldn't be real. A sample loop with somebody singing on top of it is Song of the Year? Really? Have we fallen so low? You know, lyrics as well. Uh, I I found myself recently when had an idea for a song before I kind of said I'm gonna leave it alone for a minute. I looked up online to see if that song had already existed, if there was somebody else that had already thought of that song title, and that's a wild thing for me because in my desire to try to put something out that's not out there, I often try to think of things, clever way of wording things, especially song titles, to be something that doesn't exist. And that comes across because, well, that's the thought that comes across to me because, every lyric these days, it seems on the, in the top 20, a lot of it just seems to be repetitive. I'm not seeing any depth of emotion or thought in any of it. Any of it, to be honest with you. Even the best song um, on that uh, by Billie Eilish on that's nominated was a mediocre pop song at best, with no depth to it. And though I have to admit, having that thought of does this song title exist, that creates a different kind of pressure than I think I had years ago. Years ago, I came up with a song, we came up with a title, and that was it. I didn't care if somebody else had it. I didn't look it up. Sometimes it did. It was pointed out to me, but I just kept trucking. These days, you just say, well, to check it out, that's a strange pressure. It's a strange pressure for me because songwriting really used to happen in isolation. Now it kind of happens in public, and and so this changes your perspective as a writer as well. And I think that is the genesis of the committee thinking. And the minute that I found myself doing that, I knew it was time for me to give it up because I don't want to think in those terms. You don't just want to write a song anymore. You want to write it while thinking about how it'll be received. I touched upon that last time, how it compares to whatever else is out there. But if everything is out there is super mediocre, then why are you comparing yourself to it? How it fits, as opposed to, you know, the question that you should be asking all along is, what do I want to say with this song? What do I want to say? Catch up here in the chat. Most people need to listen to old stuff like Billie Holiday so they can realize how bad modern singers are. Yeah, man. You don't even have to go that far back. You don't have to go that far back. Go back to Whitney Houston. I tell you that Whitney Houston, God rest her soul, had one of the most beautiful voices that I have heard. Again, The Preacher's Wife, not the soundtrack version, but the version they have of YouTube, the extract from the movie of I Believe in Miracles. Listen to that. Listen to that. Tina as well. Again, dynamic voices, unique voices. The minute that you hear them, you knew who the artist was. I can't tell the difference between Billie Eilish and most of the other female singers that was on that list. I couldn't, you know. So you stop asking, what do I want to say with this song? And you start asking, what kind of song should I be writing? And I know that doesn't sound bad, but these are two completely diametrically opposed thoughts in terms of writing songs. What do I want to say with this song? As opposed to what kind of song should I be writing? That's the committee speak. That's committee writing. That's the question they ask themselves. Oh, what should we be writing about today? As opposed to what do I want to say today? There's a big difference. And that is the root, again, like I said, the genesis of committee writing. And it also can affect the individual writer as well. This is not limited to the committee writers. It extends down to the guy who's got four writers or to, the one who has just one. And this is my true opinion. Again, piggybacking on Rick Beato's video about why music these days is so dire compared to years ago. Yeah, compared to years ago. And I love Tina Turner's voice. Yeah, again, uh, a rich tone that the minute you heard her sing, regardless of what the song was, uh, hold on, guys, I'm looking something up here live. I found it right here. Yeah, take a look at this, guys. This is the video by Rick Beato I'm talking about. And again, blows my mind that we've gotten to the point where people really are, it seems like they're asking, what do I, instead of asking, what do I want to say with this song, they really think of what kind of songs should we be writing today, the committee speak. And all again, like I said, although those two questions look almost identical, they will pull you in two totally different directions musically. And I think it's one of the big reasons why things sound the way that they do today. What do I want to say is the most dangerous question for a songwriter. What do I mean by that? Well, I mean that because it removes all excuses. You can't hide behind a genre. You can't hide behind cleverness. You can't hide behind production. It forces you to deal with intent. And intent points to what is this song actually about? Not the theme, but the reason. I've really had to think about it really hard about what, you know, why do I write something? Like, for example, let's see if I can play this. See, this is my song, The Well. I'm just going to play a little bit of it here, just the first few bars. I have a tale that I want to tell, the story of crabs that live in a well. Each day they look up and long for the days by the sea, saying this is a place that a crab just shouldn't be. All right. So, intent. I wrote that song during a time in Singapore when I was watching a lot of discussion that was happening in the United States about reparations and things of that nature, DEI, things of that nature. And I was looking, and of course, the groups, the Black Lives Matter groups, and things like that, that were springing up. And I was looking at it from my viewpoint of, again, 30,000 feet. I'm out of it and I'm looking down upon it, observing it all. And it disturbed me greatly. And it started pointing to questions that I was having in my life about where I stood as, a guy of a multitude of nationalities in my flowing through my blood, through my veins. And so the lyrics came first. It was a poem. I have a tale that I want to tell. The story of crabs that live in a well, and the implications of what that means, because again, there's a deeper meaning in that, especially in the African American community. They'll know immediately what I was saying with that statement. So, depth of intent, and this is a solo thing. This is something that's inside of me. This is, again, asking the question, what do I want to say? I want to say something because I wanted to scream out musically, hey, you you guys are all sadly confused about a few things. But and this is what I found, because I'm the crab at the end of that song, the one that made it at last. He did it by climbing without looking. He did it by climbing and not looking back. That's me, because in my career, I forsook friends, sometimes family, by traveling to other countries and living in other countries. Even now to some extent, climbed and climbed and climbed, and at some point, you know, as I pointed out in another song, the road can lead you away from home, and that's not a good thing. But the question, what do I want to say with this? It forces you to deal with intent. And I use that song of mine as a personal example, and as a songwriter to tell you there's no guessing, no clues, no mystery to what the intent of my lyrics were there. You had to deal with intent. What is the song actually about? Not the theme, the reason. See, my reason was I wanted to scream out musically, hey, this is what I think about all this. Why this line? As I pointed out, that first line, I know, you know, crabs in the well. Why this line? Musically, why this chord? Um, Musically, I had a Beatles song in mind, like Sergeant Pepper's or Strawberry Fields Forever, or that kind of thing. I even used a Mellotron, um, and I also used Vera. Was that Vera? A very something, I forget what it's called, that they used in order to get that effect, that baritone or something like that. They used to get that effect on those albums, and the orchestration, the strings that I orchestrated was probably the most massive orchestration. It really, I had to do the strings separately because it was eating up so much of my memory that that because it's a huge orchestration. Each section is played out line by line, and I had to think about that. And why now? At that time, I wrote that song again because it was what was going on. When Prince wrote "Sign of the Times," again, intent. You know, why this line? Sign of the times mess with your mind, hurry before it's too late. Let's fall in love, get married, have a baby, call them native. It's boy. What was that about? Why this chord? Why you know, the way that he produced that? And why now? At that moment, there was something that he wanted to say. He was addressing things that he saw that was disturbing him. And he wanted to say, hey, this is what I think about it musically. Now, here's the uncomfortable part about all that. Sometimes what you want to say is not such a big thing. Sometimes you just want to say something small, like, hey, I love you, or awkward. Like, I'm not, I may have not been the greatest, lover, but, I'm still your babe, or something like that. Or not very marketable. See, not worrying about the marketability of a song is anti-committee. The committee is worried about the marketability of it. Talk about that in a minute. The antithesis of that is not caring about the marketability. When I wrote The Well, it wasn't a song that I composed where I was listening, reaching backward. There was influences in it, obviously. But I wasn't listening to current trends and worried about what was being, on the radio. At that time, rap was prevailing anyway, so it didn't matter. I had something to say. I had something to say. Um, Most songwriters don't struggle with writing songs, they struggle with trusting their own voice. Because once you admit what you want to say, you're responsible for saying it clearly. You Ooh, do I want to talk about that? Do I want to let everybody know that? But it's something that I want to talk about, or it's a part of my life, and I can only write from what I'm experiencing if I'm being true to myself as a songwriter. So we're gonna write about things that maybe then we'll censor ourselves. Oh no, I can't put that out. I can't say that. I can't do that. You're a songwriter. You know what I'm talking about. You've been there. You know. I'm talking about, and not in the context, even in the context of rap, because I think that one of the problems and where rap fell off was that they, they didn't have any kind of sensibility as to what they were saying, what they were trying to say. It had no center to it. It was false, hollow, and on top of all that, there was no censoring. You know, there's no clarity. They were saying things, but they weren't clear. There was no clarity to it because there's no vulnerability. Vulnerability is the antithesis of what any rapper wants to be. I can't be vulnerable. I can't show myself. Please, let me not write a song like "Hello." Is it me you're looking for? Let me. I gotta write that song. Yo, you want me, or I'm not even sure if I want you. Call me, later, and we'll think about it. That bravado, that that spirit. No, you're not really being clear. Bravado is not clarity. It's a false front. Clarity is vulnerability and saying things that, you may not be comfortable saying, but they have to be said. Um, yeah. So there is that. One of my favorite songs, what I consider golden age of songwriting lyrics, we have here. I'll click on that. And we have, oh, Johnny Mathis, Without Us. That's a good one. You guys are gonna laugh at me, but I still love. Well, Johnny Mathis has a few that I like, but I was listening to Behind Closed Doors. That's one of my favorite old country songs. Loretta Lynn and Conway Twitty, song title "You're the Reason Our Kids Are Ugly" is the best. That's funny. Benny in the house. Mike, is your opinion was Tupac's lyrics to change was Tupac's lyrics good writing? Yeah, Luke. I'm not saying all of them because again, he was writing page after page after page after page about himself and his life. There was intent and there was vulnerability. Yeah, he had the bravado in it, but he chose to show his vulnerability in other places when he came to, and it may be a little bit but not very much in the female relationship area, but in the social issues. So yeah, um, but again, rap is built on bravado. You can't have. I mean, when who is that? Oh gosh, oh man, reaching back in the '80s, reaching back in the vault with this thought. um, LL Cool J came out with a song called "I Need Love." You have to understand that was a big thing at that time because that was a rapper that was showing vulnerability. See, that didn't exist before in rap. That wasn't part of the code, and that song ended up being a hit and crossing over and doing a lot of things. Um, but again, modern getting back to now, sorry about the sidetrack there, but getting back to now, you just don't see that. You don't see that. After his mom said knock you out, great tune. Yeah. He needed love because mama said knock you out. Yeah, Mike. Mike Holmes, how you doing? Welcome to the chat. Happy New Year to you. Clarity is being vulnerable, and as a songwriter, you have to be able to be vulnerable. Um, whether what you want to say is small or big. What should I be doing is actually, again, the opposite of what I want to say. What should I be doing is a songwriter's coping mechanism, and this is where you start following trends. Oh, what's the current tempo of things? What structure production wise are we minimal? Are we going over the top? What are we doing here? What lyric style? What that breathy vocal style that seems to be prevalent among most singers these days. You know, what mood works for right now? Now, these questions, whether you'll say to yourself, "Well, Mike, actually, some of those questions actually sound kind of valid," but these questions are seductive because they immediately take you out of the vulnerability and puts you in the professional. And you cannot express vulnerability in the professional. Anybody out there done business and found out what happens when you try to be vulnerable? you, you got run over. You got run over. It comes across as a strategy when you start asking those questions in your songwriting. And whereas you may think it sounds like a discipline, well, this is the way it is, and sticking to this program, creates results. Um, you know, it actually comes across as sounding like survival, and it has a subtle effect of turning songwriting into optimization, which again is the opposite of where you really want to be. Opposite of where you want to be. Benny says the problem with upright streams on YouTube is that you can't lock the screen when putting your phone in your pocket. Then all of a sudden it writes something rude and jumps to another stream. Yeah, uh, I'm trying to figure out how to get this framed and all this other so that it works. Even me, I'm not happy with it, but yeah. Um, you stop asking what does this line mean. You stop asking does this line mean something to me. You start asking does this line sounds like it belongs. And again, I think you may hear that as being two of the same things. They're not at all. And when you start going down that path, the song is no longer really yours. You've blocked avenues of vulnerability, intent. You know, you really crossed those out. Um, Not because you're copying, it's because you're editing yourself before the song is even finished, or even before you even begin to sit down and write. You've already crawled, well, I'm not going to listen to that. I had that idea. It's been nagging me and it keeps coming across, but that's not what's going on happening these days. Let me do what's. And maybe that might have been your hit, you know. You're editing yourself before your song is finished. And I hear that. When Rick Beato, I put the link there in the chat so you guys again can refer back to that. When I listen to those songs, and I think you'll agree with me when you do too, if you take the time, that all of them suffered from that, and it comes across, you know, it comes across, and it rings hollow, and they lose what I call the songs lose their center, the heart. I had a producer uh, was it Steve McKeever, one of those Motown executives, say to me, I'm not hearing this song thumping. I'm not hearing the heartbeat. Where's the heart of this song? And the center of the song, most unfinished songs live here. Half baked ideas, stuff uh, that got rejected by stuff that I wrote because it didn't have a center. Half written, maybe, or maybe overthought the opposite, or maybe or just too worked over. Um, you're trying to make it work. The song you guys have been there where you try to work on a song. I had a song like that. I had an idea for a song when I was in Singapore. The singer there asked me to write him a track. I had an idea in my head and I started recording it. And it's one of those rare occasions when I sat back and started listening to it. I'm like, what the hell was that? And how did it go to that key? I mean, really, it is because I had a half idea and I had nothing else, and I was trying to, fit other things to it, and it was just a mess. And this is really because it had no. Well, maybe it had a center. No, I mean the center had no center. It was just a half baked idea. We've all done that as songwriters. You know, something is wrong as a songwriter. Something you can't put your finger on, but not necessarily the chord or the melody or the hook. It's just the song doesn't know what it's about or who it's for, really. And it was one of those situations where I realized that I can't write songs for somebody like that. I can't compose a song and then hand it off to them and say, hey, sing this, and expect it to have any center to it. There are a lot of guys who can do that. That may be my, again, expressing my vulnerability is one of my weak points. I prefer to have the artist around, spend time with them, find out what they're about, find out what's some aspect of their life, and then write about that. So that at least it's connected to that artist. That's always worked for me. But, if a song has no spine, then it's just it's not going to stand. And no matter how many rewrites that you try to do with it, I used to do that. Oh, I got this song I was working on all these years. There's only been one instance where a song that I wrote was a half idea actually came out all right. And that was a song that is the title of this channel upstairs to the right. That song is one of my college songs. I wrote that in college and I didn't record it until decades later. Half baked idea, but it's actually ended up working. So sometimes it works, but sometimes, it has no center. There's nothing you're going to be able to do in order to resurrect or save that track. And you might have to move it on. And they can be technically correct, but emotionally vapid. And I think this again is another issue with modern songs, is that they could be technically correct, but they're emotionally vapid because they're half an idea, they're half baked, they really have no center to them. You know, Billie Jean, that had a center. Every breath you take, that had a center. She's a maniac, that had a center. All night long, that had a center. These songs these days, they don't have that. They seem like they're being cautious. And when you're being cautious, especially with songs which are supposed to attract to the listener's emotional core, when you're being cautious, you're being emotionally cautious. And when you're being emotionally cautious, it won't stick, even when it's well made, because you're not expressing that true vulnerability. I keep stressing that because, of course, you have to be an editor of yourself. But you should be willing to let out what comes, you know, if you can do that. But when you're, again, but even then, like I said, it can be technically correct, but it can be emotionally cautious, which means it won't stick. And that's something that you don't want to do. Again, what do I want to say writes the song? What should I be doing does have its place. It has its place later, after you've written the song, not the other way around. You don't sit down and saying to yourself, okay, I'm going to again write within these parameters. This is what's happening today. That's what I'm hearing on the radio. So I'm going to write it within that scope. No, you don't do that. You write the song that, whatever it is, however it comes out, then you say, what should I be doing with this? When songwriters reverse this order, they don't become less skilled, they become more themselves. So suddenly, verses don't fight choruses, lyrics don't apologize. You write one thing, but then, oh, that was too harsh, and try to make up for it in the next line. You know, choices need to feel intentional too. And I don't know how to convey that. Um, Other than just realize that if you are willing to express vulnerability, then that will come across because people will hear it. They'll hear it. That's why songs written by committee, well, technically correct, they have no center to them because, you know, it's written by several people, so therefore, it's got nothing. And this is something that I want to talk about tonight because, as a, because I don't get into songwriting very much. But one of the things that I will say is don't aim to please everybody. The song may not please everybody. Not everybody may like it, but it knows what it is. Hey, people say to you, I don't like that song very much, but isn't that, or rather, that's not my kind of cup of tea, but I like that one. That's clarity. When you can write something that if a punk rock song catches my ear and that's not exactly the genre that I'm into, say, hey, you know what? I know that's punk rock, but there's something to that one. That's vulnerability, that's clarity, that's you know, a song that has a center because that center is able to touch everybody and it's all because of its authenticity, it comes across, you know. Sid Vicious had clarity. The Ramones, they had clarity, you know. It really comes across and you can't fake it. You can't fake it. So if you're not willing to show vulnerability in your songwriting, then you might as well not be doing this. I think by vulnerability is one of the things, however, that when artists expose and put out there, if it's accepted, it could make them feel good. If it's rejected, it could lead them to drugs, alcohol, other things. Because it's true, it's real. It's like telling somebody that you love them, and them saying back to you, "Hey, I love you too," or saying, "Screw that, I never liked you," or no, you know, it has that kind of impact, and so therefore, depending upon who you are, it can have that kind of impact. That's the power of it. And so therefore, it's why if it's there, then it's felt and it's appreciated because it's somebody stepping out on a ledge. Most things these days are done by committee. They're playing it safe and they have no center. They have none of this. You know, they don't have that clarity. We're surrounded by noise. Clarity over noise is tonight's title for this live stream. We're surrounded by people giving us advice. We're surrounded on YouTube with people giving us examples and demos, comparisons, you know, metrics. You know. And I was listening to that news program the other night from Channel 7 News from Los Angeles, and they were saying, well, current metrics dictate that. I couldn't believe it. I said, we've really fallen into an Orwellian trap without any question. You know, none of that is intrinsically evil, but none of it can tell you what your song needs. You know, only you can. So if you're out there and you're a songwriter and you feel stuck, or you just feel what you've been writing lately is coming across, even to you, is feeling extremely hollow. Or if you're just working on a tune and working on a tune, endless, revisement without any satisfaction or conclusion, don't ask yourself what you should be doing. Again, look at that, what you're at, and say, what do I want to say? And if you don't have the clarity of what you want to say, then maybe it's time to go back to the drawing board. Scott says, I'm working on a song with 4 guitar tracks. I played off time on all of them, spent all day trying to save it. And an editor would have been so much better just to re-record all the parts again. No, I don't know, man. Sometimes you got to experiment and you got to do things. Sometimes you got to go the long route to figure out the other routes of how to make that work. You're experimenting and trying different things with your recording right now. So none of this is a waste of time. Um, it's just gonna, kind of steer you. Okay, maybe let's just do this. But do you think that being a singer makes for a better songwriter? No, no. I know some singers who are just terrible songwriters. They can't do it. They can't do it. The singer songwriter really is a very rare thing. I used to, it's a lot rarer than you guys think. Because there's some people who are great songwriters, there's some great singers, but to find that in one package. So being a sing, but well, you can be one or the other. You can be a singer, but not necessarily a good songwriter. Knowing the limitations of voice, pacing, arrangement, that are better. No, because I don't. I sing, and I'm a professional singer, but I don't consider myself a singer. Um, as a producer, you should be studying singers and learning about the limitations. And you should, if you had, I had, mostly females I work with. I don't like work with males too much. That's my thing. But whenever I would sit down with any of those women, I would sit down to the piano and I would start finding out what their range was. They sing this, sing this note. Okay, sing this note. I love Ramones. Sid Vicious, not so much. Yeah, yeah, I got you on that. But he was definitely a punk, and he was definitely clear. He had clarity. A musician's not so much, but definitely a punk. Yeah, he had clarity. I admire that clarity. And so it's this clarity of thought, you know, not asking what you should be doing, but what you're trying to say that leads to that clarity thought is is the answer to all of this. And everything else is just noise. And I can't tell you, I really wish that I could sit down and write a book and say this is how you get that clarity of thought. But it's just something that you're just going to have to come across. Or, however, if you're aware of that, if you find yourself asking, not what am I trying to say, but what should I be doing, you've got the order of that wrong. Should be first, what am I trying to say? After you've said it, what should I be doing with this? That's the order. Don't get it twisted. Mike, would you ever work with an artist like Michael Bolton? I'd work with anybody that's got a paycheck. I sure. Yeah, no problem. Yeah, if given the chance, absolutely. I'd be all like, well, what can I do for you, Mr. Bolton? What are we doing today? Yeah. I don't care about genres. If Sid Vicious was alive, I'd work with him if given the opportunity. Because it's about it's about the clarity of it. We're clearly, with Michael Bolton, the clarity of what he's putting out. Same as Sid Vicious, the clarity there. It's these other artists that I couldn't do because I don't. What are you doing? What are you saying? What do you want to say? And are you willing to honestly say something? And will the record company, even on top of all that, allow you to say it? It's deep. It's deep. That's a separate question for another day. Speaking of jerks, man, I have a lot of love for the Eagles. I was watching Wing Pegasus channel, and he was saying that Take It to the Limit that I used to watch on YouTube, the live version from '77 concert, has now been re-recorded and all the vocals have been pitched, AI pitched. so that they're perfect. And I know Don Henley is behind that. I, I've never met m- people between Fry and Henley who were, you can't be in that business and not come across as a dick. But these guys seem to revel in their dickedness. And Fry is no longer with us, and Henley is really trying to rewrite history. And by going in and messing with these original live recordings in order to make them fit whatever insane level of perfection that he feels that they should have been in the first place. And the original singer, Randy, is no longer with us. Meisner's no longer with us, so he can't pipe in and say what the fuck, you know. And it blows my mind that there are going to be 30, if they keep this up, this is going to be what the standard's going to be. In 30 years from now, if you're alive, you're going to listen to a copy of Led Zeppelin's, you know, the Rain song, and you're not even going to recognize it. It's like Don Henley is doing to the Eagles live recordings and studio recordings what George Lucas did with the original Star Wars. That thing has been remastered and recut and redigitalized so many times that it doesn't even resemble the original. And I again, and that's I you know I you know we just tweaked that a little bit, but again, I said if you screw with one little thing, if you pull, the Japanese say, if you pull one thread out of a sweater, the whole tapestry, the whole sweater falls apart. Exactly. No one will know what it's supposed to sound like. Yeah, you won't know because everybody who knew what it sounded like is dead by that point. It's diabolical. It's diabolical. It really is. It's diabolical. So tonight's little talk about songwriting. I'll end on that about about songwriting and where that's going. Perfection, a lack of personality. Exactly. You can you can. That's why I say I won't record to the grid, and if there's errors, if there's something in there, and it still grooves is in pocket, I'll keep it because you start pulling that stuff apart and it loses its personality. Yet again, another problem with modern music. All the greatest songs of all time have been had the imperfection of personality. Clarity is what I call it. Clarity, clarity, personality, the center. Amazing. All right, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Tomorrow's again getting back to it again, so I'm going to go to bed, and I will be back here on Wednesday with our Wednesday night live stream. Same bad time, same bad channel. Maddie, Scott, thank you guys for moderating. As always, thank you so much. Scott, thank you for always being first showing up, first and foremost, bro. I appreciate that. Mr. Watson, Mr. Larson, Mr. Allmark. Who we got here? We got Anton, who just signed up with us. Thank you, brother, so much for doing that. It's appreciated. Um, Hands muter, sir. I want to call my band Muterhead. That's a good one. How you doing, sir? I want to thank you guys all for showing up and appreciate it. Be good. See you in a few days. Bye.